The distress signal drifted through the endless dark of space, repeating the same broken message again and again. It was weak, cracked, and full of static, as if the planet sending it was fighting to stay alive. Across the galaxy, thousands of advanced species received it on their scanners. They heard the desperate call for help, but each one ignored it. Vurel 9 was marked as a red zone, a place too dangerous for rescue missions. The planet's storms were unstable, the creatures on the surface were unpredictable, and the entire region was known for energy spikes that could tear ships apart. The message kept traveling, but no one answered. Except Earth. In a quiet room inside the United Terran Fleet Command, a few officers studied the message with serious expressions. They were not the most powerful empire in the galaxy. They were not the oldest. But humans had something that the galaxy always struggled to understand. They responded to danger when others avoided it. When people asked why humans did such things, nobody could ever give a single answer. Some said humans were brave, some said they were foolish, some said humans had a strange need to help others, even if it meant risking their own lives. Whatever the reason was, Earth did not like silence when someone was crying for help. Commander Rhea Morgan stood at the front of the command room as the message played again. Rhea was known among her crew for staying calm even when things were falling apart. Her dark hair was tied back, her uniform neatly pressed, and her voice steady as she spoke. "That call did not come from a military base," she said. "It came from a research colony. They're scientists, not fighters. If we don't respond, they will die." Another officer, Lieutenant Gavin Hale, tapped on his tablet. Every other species marked the distress signal as low priority. They don't want to risk their ships. The planet is a Class 4 hazard zone. Rhea didn't look away from the projection of Vurel 9 spinning slowly above the table. The planet looked peaceful from a distance, with blue seas and green land masses, but the symbols and warnings around it told the truth. The weather systems were chaotic. The wildlife was aggressive. The core deposited unstable energy that could split the ground open without warning. Earth had already lost many explorers to dangerous planets. They understood the risks better than most, but they also understood what it meant to be trapped and alone. "Prepare the Dauntless," Rhea ordered. "We're going." There was a moment of silence. Everyone knew what that meant. The Dauntless was not the largest ship in the fleet, but it had a reputation. It was crewed by people who were comfortable walking into danger. On human worlds, they were simply called Deathworlders, people from harsh environments who grew strong because of struggle, not despite it. Humans in general were considered Deathworlders by galactic standards, but the crew of the Dauntless were something else entirely. They trained for storms that shattered buildings. They climbed mountains with low oxygen. They learned to stay level-headed under pressure. And now, they were being sent to a place where every other species refused to go. Within hours, the Dauntless launched. The ship broke through Earth's atmosphere smoothly and entered the cold quiet of space. Inside, engineers checked equipment, medics prepared emergency kits, and pilots ran last-minute system checks. Everyone on board knew that Vurel 9 was not going to be easy. Rhea walked through the ship, watching her crew. Some of them were nervous, but none of them complained. They were used to the idea that humans had to do the things no one else wanted to attempt. Gavin joined her as she paced the hallway. "I still don't understand," he said simply. "Why did no one else respond? The Vurelians are peaceful. They contribute to the Council. They've shared technology. You'd think someone would help them." Rhea sighed. "Fear is stronger than loyalty in some places. Those species don't want to lose ships. They don't want to face those storms. To them, the risk isn't worth the reward." "And to us?" Gavin asked. "To us," Rhea answered softly. "A distress call means someone is hoping the universe still cares. If we ignore that, then what does it say about us?" The Dauntless accelerated faster as it approached the unstable region around Vurel 9. Energy storms flickered like bright threads across the dark space around the planet. The ship shook lightly as the fields pushed at the hull. On the bridge, Rhea sat in her command chair as the ship's sensors scanned the planet. The storm patterns were strange, almost alive, twisting across continents with chaotic force. Lightning burst from clouds that stretched across the sky like claw marks. The Vurelian colony was located inside a small shield dome, now flickering, its energy nearly gone. The colony wasn't going to survive much longer. "We're entering atmosphere," the pilot announced. The ship dipped lower, and the windows filled with swirling colors of storm clouds. Violent winds struck the hull. The crew gripped their seats as the Dauntless pushed through the pressure. The ship's shields flickered but held strong. Rhea watched every movement carefully. "Keep us stable. Bring us as close to the colony dome as possible." The moment the ship broke through the storm layer, the crew finally saw the ground. It was worse than they expected. Trees bent sideways under the force of the wind. The ground was torn open in long cracks glowing with strange blue energy. Identical creatures ran between the shadows, their shapes unclear in the storm, but their movements fast and predatory. The colony dome stood in the middle of this chaos like a dying lantern. Its energy shield flickered again, each time revealing terrified figures inside. When the shield faded for a second, a large creature jumped at it, crashing against the invisible barrier before sliding off, confused and angry. Inside the dome, the Vurelians gathered close together, hoping the shield would hold for just a little longer. Gavin shook his head. "How have they lasted this long?" "Vurelians are smart," Rhea said. "They probably built emergency backups, but even the smartest species can't fight a planet that wants to tear itself apart." The Dauntless landed on a high ridge where the winds were weaker. A ramp extended, and humans stepped out wearing reinforced suits. The air was thick, heavy, and full of electric charge. Their visors glowed as the suit systems adjusted to the environment. Rhea led the team forward. Every step shook the ground. Every gust of wind threatened to knock them sideways. But the humans pushed through. They moved like they were used to being challenged by nature itself. When they reached the edge of the dome, the Vurelians saw them and froze. Through the flickering barrier, they stared wide-eyed at the humans standing calmly in the storm. Many Vurelians had never seen a human in person before. To them, humans looked like a mix of danger and hope, creatures that survived places other species wouldn't dare to visit. A Vurelian voice crackled through the failing speaker system. It was weak and filled with disbelief. You came?" Rhea stepped closer. Her voice was steady even though the storm howled around her. "Yes, we heard your call." "No one else responded," the Vurelian said. Rhea nodded. "We know, but we're here now. And we'll get all of you out." The Vurelians exchanged looks filled with relief, confusion, and amazement. They had prepared themselves for the worst. They never expected humans to appear out of the storm like a miracle. The dome flickered again. Rhea watched it carefully. "We don't have long. Gavin, get the stabilizers set up. We need to reinforce the shield before it collapses entirely." The humans began unloading equipment. Heavy stabilizer rods slammed into the ground with loud thuds. Energy cables snapped into place. The storm fought them with every gust of wind, but the humans worked through it without hesitation. Their suits sparked occasionally as energy bursts hit them, but they continued like it was nothing more than rain. Inside the dome, the Vurelians watched with awe. They had always heard stories about humans, that they survived dangerous worlds, that they adapted to harsh conditions, that they refused to give up. But seeing it in real life was different. Humans didn't just talk about bravery, they lived it. After several minutes of hard work, the stabilizers activated. A wave of blue light surged around the dome, strengthening its structure. For the first time in days, the Varelians felt the ground stop shaking beneath their feet. Rhea looked at the colony leader through the barrier. "Hold on! This is only the beginning, but we're not leaving without you." The leader pressed a hand against the inside of the dome wall. Why would humans come for us? We are far from your space. We have nothing to offer you." Rhea answered with a small, calm smile. "You called for help. And humanity doesn't ignore that." The storm roared above them, but inside the colony, a new feeling spread. Hope. The galaxy had stayed silent, but Earth had answered, and the Varelians realized that when humans stepped into danger, they did not look frightened. They looked ready. The storm outside the dome continued to roar like a living creature, but the humans worked calmly, as if they had practiced this 100 times before. The stabilizers attached to the ground hummed with a soft energy, forming a temporary shell of protection around the Varelian colony. Even though it was weaker than the original dome, it gave everyone inside a chance to breathe again. Commander Rhea Morgan stepped back to check the readings on her visor. The numbers were steady for now, but she knew they would not stay that way. Every second the storm pressed against the stabilizers, the equipment heated up and strained under the pressure. They had bought themselves time, but not safety. Gavin Hale stood beside her, wiping dust from his visor. "The shield will hold for maybe a few hours," he said. "The energy field on this planet is unstable. It keeps shifting, like the ground itself is fighting us." Rhea nodded. "We knew this wouldn't be simple, but we've seen worse." Gavin gave her a tired smile. "Only humans consider storms that can tear buildings apart, not the worst." They both turned toward the dome. Through the flickering barrier, they could see the Varelians watching them with wide eyes. These scientists had been stuck here for days with no hope of escape. Some of them looked exhausted. Some looked just relieved the shield wasn't collapsing anymore. And some were staring at the humans with a mixture of awe and confusion. Rhea raised a hand in greeting, and several Varelians did the same from inside. It was a small gesture, but it showed trust. She activated her communicator. "Team 2, begin scanning the colony interior. Let's assess how many survivors we have." A voice answered through static. "Copy, Commander. Entering the dome now." Inside the structure, 2 human medics and 3 tech specialists stepped through the airlock, moving carefully. The Varelians backed away slightly at first, nervous, but the medics spoke with gentle voices, reassuring them. Humans were taller and physically stronger than Varelians, but they kept their movements slow and respectful, showing they meant no harm. One of the medics knelt beside a Varelian who sat trembling on the floor. The scientist's thin hands shook as they held a damaged tablet. The medic scanned him with a portable device. "You're dehydrated and low on nutrients," she said softly. "Nothing serious. We'll get you food and water." The Varelian nodded, clearly relieved, and whispered, "Thank you." Meanwhile, outside the dome, Rhea studied the readings from the planet's core. Strange waves of energy pulsed through the ground like a heartbeat. The storms, the earthquakes, the violent flashes of light from the cracks, everything was connected to the unstable core. Gavin frowned as he examined the data with her. "That's not natural. Something is wrong down there. If the core destabilizes any further, the whole region could go critical." "Meaning the planet becomes uninhabitable," Rhea said quietly. "Or worse," Gavin added. "It could explode." For a moment, neither of them spoke. The problem was bigger than rescuing a few scientists. If the planet collapsed, anyone nearby could be in danger, and the Varelian colony was directly above the most unstable zone. Rhea finally said, "We need to reach the core facility." Gavin blinked. "You want to go down there? Through the storms and the cracks?" Rhea didn't hesitate. If we don't, the colony dies anyway, and maybe the whole planet with it. Gavin sighed, shaking his head. Sometimes I forget you're from a mountain region on Earth. You think everything is climbable. That's because everything is, Rhea replied, her voice calm but firm. They returned to the dome entrance as the humans inside finished assessing the survivors. A Varelian elder, clearly the leader of the colony, stepped forward. His silver skin glowed softly under the flickering lights. He looked at Rhea through the transparent barrier. Your people have strength I have never seen before. The storms barely slow you down. The creatures outside run from your presence. How is this possible? Rhea smiled lightly. Humans grow up on worlds that try to kill us in different ways. Heat, cold, storms, predators, we adapt. We learn to push back. The elder bowed his head. We owe you our lives. When your ship appeared from the clouds, many of us believed we were dreaming. You're not dreaming, Rhea said, but the situation is still very dangerous. Your planet's core is unstable. If we don't fix it, none of us will survive. The elder's eyes widened. You want to fix the core? But that facility is deep underground. Even our strongest workers couldn't get there through the storms. We'll manage, Rhea replied. Inside the dome, several Varelians whispered among themselves. They couldn't imagine anyone going into the heart of the storm willingly. Humans were strange to them, too calm, too confident, too ready to put themselves in danger for others. The elder placed his hands against the barrier. You risk everything for people you do not know. Rhea stepped closer. You sent a call for help. That was enough. With that, the humans began preparing for the journey to the core facility. The path would take them several kilometers through rough terrain. Earthquakes shook the ground every few minutes, and the wind was strong enough to knock lesser species down. But Rhea's team checked their suits, strapped on their climbing gear, and walked like they were headed into familiar territory. Before leaving, Rhea gave instructions to the medic team. Keep the Varelians warm and hydrated. Reinforce the dome from the inside if the storms intensify again. We'll return as soon as the core is stable. The medics nodded, ready for the responsibility. Gavin led the engineering team toward the ridge. The land below them rolled unpredictably, and glowing cracks of blue energy split open like wounds in the earth. Strange animals watched them from the shadows. Tall, lean creatures with glowing eyes that seemed to judge whether the humans were a threat or prey. Rhea moved first. When a gust of wind nearly knocked Gavin over, she grabbed his arm and steadied him. Stay close, she said. Don't let the wind push you toward the cracks. The team pressed forward. Every few minutes, a bolt of lightning struck nearby, sparking across the rocky terrain. The earth rumbled constantly, reminding them that time was running out. Despite the chaos, the humans remained focused. They moved with purpose, scanning the ground, marking safe paths, and climbing over broken ridges. The crew communicated with short, precise messages to avoid distraction. After an hour of difficult travel, the ground suddenly split open ahead of them with a loud crack. A deep trench appeared, glowing with unstable energy. The path they had been following vanished. Gavin stared at the gap. Well, that complicates things. Rhea scanned the trench. It's about 5 meters wide. We can't jump it carrying equipment. We need a bridge, one of the engineers said. With what? Gavin asked. Rhea looked around calmly. Scattered across the ground were broken trees, large metal pieces from past Varelian transport vehicles, and heavy stones. To a Varelian, that debris was useless, but humans were used to building with whatever they could find. Rhea pointed. We'll reinforce those metal beams with the fallen logs. Then we secure everything with the climbing cables. Gavin laughed once under his breath. You make it sound easy. It isn't, she said simply, but it's possible. The humans went to work. They lifted heavy logs together, carried beams through the wind, and tied multiple cables into place. Their gloves sparked as the storm struck them again and again, but not one of them stopped working. It took nearly 30 minutes, but slowly, a stable path formed across the trench. When they finished, the team crossed carefully. The bridge groaned under their weight, but it held. Once on the other side, they continued their journey. The entrance to the core facility finally came into view, an old metal structure half buried under cracked soil. The doors were bent, and the ground around it glowed with unstable blue light. Gavin stepped forward to inspect the panels. "Power's failing. We'll need to override the system." Rhea watched the sky as lightning flashed again. "Do it fast! The storms are getting worse." Inside the dome, far behind them, the Varelians watched the humans on their screens. Their drones had followed the rescue team, sending back real-time footage. The colony members gasped every time lightning struck near the humans. They whispered in fear when the ground split open. They marveled at how humans built a bridge in the middle of a storm as if it was normal. One young Varelian turned to the elder. "How do they do it? How do they stay so calm?" The elder answered slowly, "Perhaps danger is not new to them. Perhaps they grew strong because their world challenged them every day. Maybe that is why no one else came, and why they did." Back at the facility entrance, Gavin finally forced the door open with a loud metallic screech. Warm air filled with static rushed out from the dark interior. Rhea looked at her team. "Stay alert. We don't know what's waiting inside." They stepped into the shadows, leaving the storm behind them. And above the colony, the clouds swirled faster, as if the planet itself sensed what they were trying to do. The real challenge was just beginning. The inside of the core facility was dark, silent, and full of dust. The walls were cracked from the constant earthquakes, and the dim emergency lights flickered weakly along the ceiling. Every few seconds, a strange vibration moved through the metal floors, reminding the humans that the planet's core was unstable and growing worse. Commander Rhea Morgan raised her wrist light. The beam cut through the darkness, revealing long hallways filled with fallen equipment and damaged consoles. Gavin Hale followed behind her, scanning the environment with portable sensors. The rest of the engineering team moved carefully, their helmets glowing with soft light. Gavin checked the readings. "Energy levels are off the charts. The core is discharging unstable waves every few seconds. If we don't stabilize it soon, the entire facility might collapse." Rhea nodded, calm even in the face of danger. "Let's move. The control chamber should be deep underground. We need to get there before another surge hits." As they walked deeper, the ground trembled again. Dust fell from the ceiling, and a loud metallic groan echoed through the corridors. One of the engineers looked up nervously. "This place wasn't built to handle storms like these." "Nothing is built to handle storms like these," Rhea replied, "but we'll make it through." They continued down a long staircase, stepping over broken rails and scattered debris. The temperature rose as they descended, and the air became thick with energy. Blue sparks danced along the walls, a clear sign that the core was leaking power. Finally, they reached the first security door. It was half open, jammed by a fallen beam. Gavin motioned for two engineers to help. Together, they pushed the beam aside and forced the door open with a grinding sound. Beyond it lay a larger chamber filled with machinery that hummed and buzzed with unstable energy. Broken screens flashed random symbols. Pipes shook violently. The entire room felt alive, like the heart of the planet was beating through the metal. Rhea stepped forward. "Scan everything. We need to understand what triggered the instability." The team spread out. Gavin walked to a large console and wiped the dust from the surface. His visor lit up with sensor readings. "It looks like the core was overloaded during a research experiment. The Varelians were trying to extract energy from deep under the planet. Something went wrong and created a chain reaction." Rhea looked at the pulsing blue lines under the floor. "Can we reverse it?" Gavin hesitated. "Maybe. But we need access to the main core chamber, and that's even deeper than this. Suddenly, a loud crack echoed through the chamber. The ground shook violently, forcing the humans to grab onto nearby equipment. A large metal support beam came loose from the ceiling and crashed to the ground with a thunderous crash. "Everyone okay?" Rhea shouted. A chorus of "Yeah, and we're fine" followed. But the earthquake did more than shake the room. It activated a hidden emergency system. A deep alarm echoed through the hallways, and heavy locks slid into place across several doors. Gavin checked his tablet. That's not good. The facility is trying to seal itself to contain the instability. If the doors close completely, we won't reach the core. Rhea didn't waste a second. "Move! We're not letting this place trap us." The humans hurried through the nearest hallway before the next door could close. Sparks burst from the ceiling as they ran. Blue energy flashed across the metal walls like lightning trapped indoors. The deeper they went, the louder the pulsing sound became. Finally, they reached a giant circular door, the entrance to the main chamber. Gavin stared at it. "This is it. But the locking system is fried." Rhea stepped closer. "Then we open it manually." Two engineers attached magnetic grips to the door while Gavin worked to override the damaged controls. The door shuddered, resisted, then slowly began to rotate open. A wave of heat washed over them as the chamber revealed itself. The core chamber was enormous, stretching down several levels. The central structure, once a controlled energy reactor, now pulsed erratically with bright blue waves. Cracks glowed along the floor. Sparks jumped through the air like small lightning bolts. And at the very bottom, surrounded by unstable machinery, the true core pulsed like a living star. The humans stood at the entrance in awe and tension. "This is worse than I thought," Gavin whispered. "If this thing overloads, the explosion could tear the entire continent apart." Rhea's voice was calm but firm. "Then we fix it." They moved down the metal stairs, which shook under their weight. The energy waves made the air vibrate, and the heat forced their suits to adjust constantly. The closer they got to the core, the more unstable everything felt. When they reached the main platform, Gavin connected his tablet to the control terminal. The system flickered, barely functional, but still alive. "Okay," he said. "We need to reroute the overload and stabilize the primary conduits. The problem is, this system wasn't designed for human hands." "Explain," Rhea said. "The Varelians use delicate controls," Gavin answered, pointing at the thin switches and small circuits. "Our gloves are thicker. Our hands are bigger. If we apply too much pressure, we could break the system." Rhea looked around the chamber. "So we adapt." The team divided into small groups. Some stabilized the shaking machinery. Some anchored the broken pipes. Gavin and Rhea stayed at the central console, working to redirect the unstable flows. Outside the dome, far away, the Varelians watched the drone feeds with trembling hands. Every time the core sent out a pulse, the screens shook violently. They could see the humans standing dangerously close to erupting energy. One young Varelian whispered, "Why are they so calm? Don't they fear anything?" The elder replied, "Humans fear things. They simply do not let fear control them." Back inside the chamber, Gavin finally found the right nodes. "Commander, I think I can stabilize the flow if someone manually resets the lower conduits." "I'll do it," said one of the engineers. But as he moved toward the lower level, another earthquake struck. The walkway twisted, and part of the platform collapsed. The engineer grabbed onto the railing to avoid falling into the glowing pit below. Rhea rushed forward, pulling him to safety. "You okay?" He nodded shakily. "Yes, Commander." Rhea checked the damaged walkway. It was broken in the middle, with sparks shooting out dangerously, but the lower conduits were still reachable with a careful jump. Gavin looked at her. "Rhea, don't even think about it." "I'm the lightest one here," she replied. "If anyone can make that jump safely, it's me." She tightened her gear and stepped back, ready to leap. Gavin looked torn between stopping her and trusting her judgment. "You better not fall," he said quietly. Rhea smiled. "I don't plan to." With a controlled breath, she ran and jumped across the gap. Her boots hit the unstable platform, which shook under her weight, but she kept her balance. She crouched down and opened the conduit panel. "Gavin, I'm ready," she said. Gavin input the command sequence. "Resetting in 3, 2, 1. At his signal, Rhea manually realigned the energy flow. The core pulsed once, violently, then steadied for a brief moment. Gavin checked the readings. "It's working! The overload is slowing down!" But before they could celebrate, the core surged again, this time stronger than before. The entire facility shook. Blue lightning filled the chamber, dancing across the rails and machines. Gavin shouted, "The core is fighting the reset!" Rhea stayed focused. "Then we do it again. Increase the stabilizer strength." The humans worked with coordinated precision, adjusting controls, reinforcing supports, and manipulating systems that weren't designed for them. They moved through heat, shaking ground and flashing lights, all while the core pulsed like an angry heart. Finally, after several minutes of intense effort, the readings on Gavin's tablet started to stabilize. The violent pulses slowed. The cracks in the floor dimmed slightly. Rhea asked, breathing heavily, "Is it enough?" Gavin watched the numbers fall into stable range. Yes, it's working. The core is stabilizing." The team let out a collective sigh of relief, but Rhea didn't relax yet. "We need to monitor it. If anything spikes again, we respond immediately." Gavin nodded. "Of course." Outside the facility, the storm began to weaken just slightly. Not calm, not safe, but less aggressive, as if the planet itself was breathing easier. Inside the dome, the Virelians watched in awe as the readings on their screens shifted from warning red to stable blue. They looked at each other with disbelief. One whispered, "They did it." Another said, "Humans stabilized the core. No one else could have done that." The elder closed his eyes in gratitude. Back in the core chamber, Rhea stood beside her team, their suits scorched, their faces tired, but their spirits steady. This mission wasn't over. They still had to bring the Virelians home. But for the first time since arriving on the planet, they had hope. The days that followed became a strange mixture of calm and tension. The Galactic Union had retreated, at least for the moment, but everyone knew they would return. Earth's people worked with relentless focus, preparing for whatever storm was coming again. The aliens who had survived on the diplomatic station watched Earth with disbelief. Many of them had expected humans to panic or fall into chaos after the attack, but instead they saw something else: cooperation, discipline, and a strange sense of shared strength that even advanced species rarely showed. Aiden moved between research labs and training facilities every day. The world felt louder, more alive, like every human understood that history was looking at them. Dr. Lacilia walked beside him often, still healing from earlier wounds, but stronger now. She had seen many civilizations, many powerful empires, but the humans continued to confuse her. They should have been afraid. They should have run. They did neither. Aiden received a message in the morning that changed his entire schedule. Admiral Rourke wanted him at the command center immediately. The last time he had been called like that, the Union ships had been approaching. He walked through the metallic corridor with quick steps, thinking about what new danger had appeared. When he entered the command hall, he saw the main screen lit with dozens of red and blue symbols. The officers were whispering to each other. Rourke stood at the front like a mountain of calm strength. His expression was stern, but not hopeless. "We detected a massive fleet forming on the edge of their controlled region," Rourke said. "It looks like they're preparing for an all-out attack." Aiden felt a faint heaviness in his chest. but he didn't speak. The room remained silent. "They plan to crush Earth before any other species can step in," Rourke continued. "They don't want the idea of Deathworlders to spread across the galaxy. It threatens their power." Lysilia stepped forward. "If they launch a full attack, your chances of surviving will be low. Their numbers are overwhelming." Aiden finally spoke, his voice steady. "But they don't know us." Rourke nodded. "Exactly. We cannot match their numbers or their technology, but we can do what humans always do when cornered. We can adapt. We can surprise." He extended his hand toward the central table. A hologram shimmered, showing Earth, the Union fleet, and a thin corridor of space near an old star system. "We're going to meet them before they reach Earth," Rourke said. Aiden stared at the hologram. "We're taking the fight to them?" Rourke answered with a small smile. "Not a fight. A lesson." The plan was simple, yet dangerous. The humans would send a smaller fleet, fast, unpredictable, to intercept the Union. Not to destroy them, but to force a conversation, to show them that humans were not prey. Aiden and Lysilia would be part of the diplomatic group on the lead vessel. Aiden had not expected that. He thought his role as translator and researcher was ending, but Rourke believed otherwise. "You saw the Union leader," Rourke said. "You understand the way he thinks. You're needed." Aiden accepted. He didn't know if he was brave or merely refusing to step back, but he knew he couldn't let others carry this burden alone. The next day, the human fleet launched. The sky over Earth filled with streaks of light as the ships left the atmosphere. People stood in streets and rooftops watching the departure. Some prayed, some saluted, some simply watched with quiet pride. Aiden stood near the window of the ship as Earth shrank behind them. Lysilia joined him. Her eyes were focused on the stars ahead. "Your world is strange," she said softly. "You face enemies with a confidence many advanced species never had." Aiden smiled a little. "We don't know how to back down." "No," she said. "You choose not to back down. There is a difference." The journey through hyperspace felt longer than before. Every hour, officers checked the scanners, waiting for the moment the Union fleet appeared. And finally, after 2 days of travel, they arrived at the edge of an empty star system. An eerie calm filled the bridge. Then the Union fleet appeared. Hundreds of ships, lined like a wall of cold metal. The human officers stiffened, but no one panicked. Aiden felt his heartbeat quicken, yet he stood straight. The Union commander's face appeared on the main screen, the same expression of superiority he had worn before. "You have made a mistake coming here," the alien leader said. "We gave you a chance to remain silent. You refused." Rourke stepped forward. "And you misjudged the world you threatened." The Union leader laughed. "You are a primitive species. You think bravery equals strength. You think stubbornness equals power. This is why we rule and you obey." Aiden stepped beside Rourke, surprising even himself. "You don't rule us," he said. "You never did." The alien's expression shifted slightly, as if the words were unexpected. Rourke raised a hand, signaling. The human fleet adjusted formation, not like a prepared battle group, but like something else, something unpredictable. The ships drifted apart, forming a pattern that seemed random but wasn't. A new hologram appeared behind Aiden, showing the environment of the star system. "This region has storms," Rourke said. "Solar winds, unstable gravity pockets, dangerous currents your ships avoid." The Union leader narrowed his eyes. "And what does that matter?" "It matters," Aiden said, "because we grew up in danger. Our world tried to kill us for millions of years. We learned to survive things stronger species avoid." Rourke gave the order. The human fleet moved straight into the unstable region, weaving between violent bursts of energy, sliding through gravity distortions with practiced precision. They didn't fight with strength. They fought with instinct, speed, and adaptability. things Earth had forced them to learn. The Union fleet tried to follow, but their powerful engines and rigid formations struggled. A few ships drifted off course, others pulled back. The Union commander's expression tightened with frustration. "This proves nothing," he snapped. "It proves everything," Aiden replied. "We cannot match your firepower, but you cannot match our experience with chaos." He stepped closer to the screen. "You want the galaxy to obey you, but the galaxy will not obey tyrants forever. Earth is not alone anymore, and if you destroy us, you only prove to others that resistance is necessary." Silence spread. The Union leader looked at him, not with hatred, not with anger, something else, a calculation. Rourke spoke again. "Withdraw, turn back, admit that you misjudged us." The Union leader stared at them for several seconds. His eyes moved from Rourke to Aiden, then to Lacilia, then to the pattern of human ships still dancing through the dangerous region with impossible ease. Finally, he exhaled. Not loudly, not dramatically, but it was enough. "Very well," he said quietly. "We will retreat. For now." The screen shut off. Moments later, the Union ships began pulling away from the system. The tension in the human command deck shattered into relieved breaths, tired laughter, and quiet smiles. Rourke turned to Aiden and placed a hand on his shoulder. "You did well," the Admiral said. "You showed them what they needed to see." Aiden felt a strange mix of pride and exhaustion. He looked at Lacilia, who gave him a small nod, her eyes soft with respect. The journey back to Earth did not feel as heavy as before. The stars felt brighter, the halls quieter. Humans had not won a war, but they had won something just as important: the right to stand, the right to be heard, the right to exist without bending to fear. When the fleet returned to Earth, millions of people gathered. The ships landed in long rows, and cheers rose from every direction. Children waved flags. Elders cried. Scientists stood proudly with their unfinished inventions. Soldiers saluted the returning crew. Aiden walked down the ramp with Lacilia at his side. He looked at the crowd and felt something growing in his heart. Hope. Real hope. Humanity had stepped into the galaxy not as victims, not as prey, but as survivors, Deathworlders who refused to be quiet, and the galaxy had finally understood that Earth was no longer alone and no longer ignored. The humans had emerged, and the galaxy would never forget it.